Waiting for Seconds is a podcast that talks about subjects of self-harm, suicide, eating disorders, and other personal topics. If you don't feel comfortable listening to this podcast alone, listen to it with someone important to you. May that be a teacher, a parent figure, or someone else you feel comfortable being with.
This is Waiting for Seconds, the interview podcast where we meet people and ask them who they are and why they are. I'm Shannon Miller, and I'm here with my buddy Malcolm, and today we will be talking with Austin, but not my brother Austin. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, the name is Austin, 23 years old, New York born and raised. Your tech support friend and Star Wars Encyclopedia.
That was really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Star Wars Encyclopedia, I can back that up.
I've helped you with tech before.
Yeah, I mean, you work in tech, but you've never helped. Have you helped me with tech?
Probably.
Maybe. Anyway, I met Austin a couple of years back now through another group of online friends. We were originally introduced through playing a D&D game together. And though that game has ended, we have continued playing a couple other games and, just vibing, hanging out in general. So we brought you on today to ask some questions, Austin.
I'm here to answer them.
And I think I actually want to start with the most prominent thing. We here, all three of us, play tabletop RPGs.
Yeah, I've been playing for about 10 years.
Hell yeah, that's pretty impressive.
That's a lot longer than I and probably Malcolm.
I also happen to know that you are creating your own system.
Yes, you have helped me with that immensely.
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
I want to talk about why you play tabletop RPGs. Is it just an escapism, as I know it is for a lot of people, or is it more of like a passion project in creating it and making and running games?
So, okay. D&D was an escape for me. Like I said, I've been playing it since I was 14, because I'm turning 24 soon. And while it was always about escapism and also creativity, because I'm planning on going into the game design industry anyway, what better way to get your foot in the door than DMing, because that's just practice for making your own game, essentially. You have the rule set, but you decide what goes. I would say that it is a mix of that, but also the idea of creating something. Obviously I'm no Critical Role, but I'd like to think that I can make something decent.
So it's started as escapism, but has evolved almost to be something, something more than that.
Yes, but I would also say that the escapism part is still there. We all have our bad days.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I would love to ask a little bit more about the system in particular and the actual, this might be me being a nerd, but I want to know more about the creation process. What, from building a system from ground to top, what did that look like for you?
Oh, God, I remember, because I started making it when I was 14, when I first got into Dungeons & Dragons. It was horrible. In the first few iterations, it was bad. But eventually, as I got older and started to find more things, I played pretty much all of the big Star Wars tabletop systems, like Star Wars 5e. I've played Star Wars Saga Edition, Fantasy Flight games. They're all great in their own right and have great things about them. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they're bad. But I am trying to make the most in-depth system that there is, mostly by combining Knights of the Old Republic, which was based off of D&D 3.5, D&D 3.5, and Pathfinder, and Star Wars Sagas, because Star Wars Sagas was based off of Pathfinder, and Pathfinder's was based off of 3.5, and all leads back to that.
Everything feeds back into 3.5. It always does.
But it is a Star Wars role-playing game.
Yes.
Are you
And-
creating like your own classes for that? Like, how does that work?
Well, as far as how it works, classes are concerned of. I basically am dividing it up into categories right now. There's Force user classes, which I took inspiration from KOTOR, which are the main three schools of thought of a Force user, which is lightsaber, Force, or lightsaber focus, Force focus, and then focus on neither but good at both. Which which Guardian, Consular, and Sentinel, respectively. And then non-Force user classes, I'm taking inspiration from, again, KOTOR, but also Pathfinder, because Pathfinder, in my opinion, has a very nice, robust class system.
Mm-hmm.
And also getting racial classes figured out, because there would be some that are tied to your race, and also figuring out prestige classes, because once you hit level 15, which is a rule from KOTOR, you go into a prestige class. So getting all those figured out, because every class now needs 2 prestige classes. So I need to have double the amount of prestige classes as I do classes, excluding racial classes. There's going to be a lot.
So as you're working with this, are you making more notes, more bigger ideas? Are you even changing like previous notes or previous ideas?
Oh yeah. This thing has been gone through the grinder and has come out completely different more than once. I'm finally starting to hit stable versions that I'm happy with.
What percentage do you think you are through the making of this role-playing game?
Ooh, that's tough. What percentage do I think I'm through? Oh god, there's so much that I still have to do on it. I'd say I'm going to be generous and say about anywhere between 15 to 20%.
Holy crap!
Because
So
I only got
you got your work cut out for you, really.
yeah, like I only got the first like 100-ish races figured out.
100-ish,
a little bit more.
Oh my gosh!
Not to mention genetic mutations, Sith spawning, being a clone is a thing that I recently put in there. Like, it's a lot.
And I will say, with a system like this, like, I mean, we've all kind of seen it recently with D&D 5e. You're gonna keep releasing new shit, even if everything is wrapped and finished and in a published state. More things are gonna come out that add a couple new interesting things or some more interesting lore. Like, a project like this is rarely finished, because even if it's done and wrapped and perfectly functional, it's hard to step away from.
Oh yeah, like I know I'm going to be making this for a long time. Like God, I haven't even done the Yuzong Vong expansion, and also for legal reasons. For legal reasons, I am stating I'm not making money off this. Disney, please do not sue me.
It's no money. It's a passion project, and etc. etc.
Exactly.
Hopefully, none of that needs to be said, but it's Disney.
It's if we ever get that big.
Yeah, or if they randomly stumble upon it or something.
Are you giving yourself a time limit when you want to release like a beta or like an alpha version?
Publicly release? No time limit. I will do it when I'm ready, and I'd probably just do a huge Reddit thread about it.
That's fair. That's the fastest way it's going to travel around these days.
And if it goes well online, you can actually use projects like that as a start of a portfolio.
Ooh, that's creative.
Which a lot of, and I'm trying to get into game design, specifically lore design and game mechanics. I'm not a programmer by any stretch of the imagination, but a degree to a lot of companies says, on paper I can do this. A portfolio says I can and have done it.
Does it feel like your child? Like you've worked so many hours on this, like is it really an emotional project for you?
Yeah, honestly. Like I've had to sit down and realize that when I ask people for help and they give me answers I don't like, that I have to realize I'm the one that asked in the first place, and if I wasn't ready to take criticism, I shouldn't have asked at all.
Goodness.
But at the same time, a lot of those things that people shot down, I reworked and refined to make better, to work. Like, I literally have made entire game mechanics work because I got pissed that people didn't like it. So, fuck it. If it's... I could curse out here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
we don't give a
so I was
shit.
like, fuck it, and I just decided to make some of these mechanics better. I'll be like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to make it work, and they're going to like it.
So that being said, with what we know about your project now, where do you want to see either you or your project in the next 5 years?
Well, hopefully in the next 5 years, the Reddit post is out there, because I want to consider the baseline finished upon
Like
when I release it.
Like have a beta out.
Yeah, the beta for me would be when classes and races are done in balance. I'm currently revamping how combat works entirely and how force powers work. Magic, there is magic in Star Wars, revamping how that's going to play out.
That's going to be
magic
insane.
that isn't the Force, but
the Force is just the most roundabout way.
Yeah, it's all kind of the Force, but yeah.
Now, what about you yourself? Where would you like to be in 5 years?
Well, honestly, hopefully I'm out of my current job and somewhere better in 5 years. Hopefully living with my girlfriend and not my parents, because by then I'd be 28. Or 29, actually. God. I'd be my girlfriend's age now.
Ooh.
So hopefully I'd be living with her out of Best Buy. Not that Best Buy was bad to work, just need to move on to something better.
Yeah.
You spent your time there. It's time to find new horizons.
Also considering the fact that I'm the part-timer there of 3 years and I'm now the most senior salesperson.
God.
And you're just a part-timer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's because I'm also going to school. It's not like I didn't want full-time.
Gotcha. You're going to school for, like, computers? Yeah?
No, actually. I'm going to school for getting an English major, specifically in literature. Because the idea is, if I'm going to be a lore designer for a game, I need to know how to write good lore to begin with.
Yeah.
You gotta write the hell out of the lore before it's lore.
Right. Like, my dream position, I don't know the official corporate name for it, but it would be a lead lore designer, would be like my... though it's so nice because I can sit down with the mission designers, the environmental designers, the story writers, and basically tell them, all right, this is what I'm thinking we need to do.
You have any place in mind? Like, would you be trying to work with Disney and Star Wars, or is that just you want to write some lore? End of story.
Ooh, good question.
I want to be behind video games. Now, I always would love to work on Star Wars, but the problem is Disney took Star Wars in a direction that I can't sit here and agree with. And I have a feeling I would be buried under all the big names trying to do shit before I could get my thoughts out.
Too many people there to make it.
Would you love to, like, create the new lore for Star Wars, though?
So there'd be a very simple thing I would do. There would be a few things I'd add to the lore that I think would be really cool.
Yeah.
But 99% of what I would do is get rid of Disney's canon and reinstate Legends. There's only a couple pieces from Disney I would keep, and that's very few and far between. Oh, sorry.
Legends is the comic, yeah?
Like
sorry? The Legends, Star Wars Legends, that's the old Dark Horse comic?
That's part of it. Legends is now anything that isn't Disney canon.
Oh.
So anything that came in Star Wars stuff that isn't like the 9 movies and a couple of specific things they approve of.
Right. That's all Legends. So
Gotcha.
I would be getting rid of Disney canon, reinstating Legends, keeping 1 or 2 things from Disney canon, calling it there. Like, I would keep Rogue One, but I would make it a lot darker because of the Legends version was a whole lot darker. Like, Red Hand Squadron, spoilers to anybody that hasn't read the comic. Red Hand Squadron was on the planet getting the Death Star plans. They got them off-world, but the problem was that they had no way out. So it was just them fighting for days knowing they were going to die, and some of them rode down the suicide at the end to avoid getting captured. Like, it got dark, and I would have kept Rogue One and given it a little bit more of a spin on it like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
think that would have been an interesting ending, but probably a lot less marketable. Yeah, I don't really. I've never really gotten there. Removing of lore and like in programming, removing functionality is the biggest bad that you can do. It's just like taking away functionality from a program is just stupid. It's never like obviously unless the functionality is breaking things, and it just hurts the element, the final design.
Mhm.
And that just feels like what they did. Like maybe it simplifies it a little bit, but if you want simplified Star Wars, like it's there already. Watch 9 movies and you're done.
But they're not even great movies.
Well,
Not all of
them
them
aren't.
are great.
I still say Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back, is still in my top movies list, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I never like I didn't really get into Star Wars at a young enough age that it feels like it was super something big for me. Like they're good movies, and I mean the prequels look amazing, and the original trilogy has a great story and pretty damn good acting too. Like, but they're just not fundamental to me in the same way that like a Princess Bride is.
Gotcha.
Princess Bride is so good, though.
It is so good.
You killed my father, prepared to die.
Marriage.
Twoo off. I got a question.
Shoot.
So, this whole working part-time at Best Buy, well getting educated, well making a system, and I mean, at least running a game for me, if not more games at any given time. That sounds stressful as hell. How do you manage that stress? Like, I know a lot
So,
of people. Go ahead. I'll just let you talk.
work is a stressor for many reasons,
Mm.
but I always enjoy running the Star Wars games. Like running all the games that I run, I love them all. I very much enjoy working on the system.
Mm.
Like that's all stuff I love. And school, it's like it can be stressful, but like just like, hey, dumbass, finish that paper and submit it, and then you're good.
So it's not even really like there's just the one big stress element, and then a number of good ways to relieve stress. And then, I mean, school can be stressful if you're bad at it, but presumably you're submitting papers on time, so you're pretty good at it. Have you ever had any big, like, maybe back when you were in high school? I know, at least for me, high school was very stressful, and I had to find some really, in many cases, not healthy ways of dealing with stress. Was that ever a problem for you?
Okay, so sad story now. So high school was probably one of my darkest times mentally.
Mhm.
My hands are actually still scarred. I didn't cut myself, but I thought drywall was a fun thing to smash my hand through. Trigger warning, blood. But I one time swiped my arm instead of going through the drywall. My arm skidded across it, and drywall's a rough surface.
Oof.
You don't know the kind of
Yikes.
reality check you get when you're wiping your own skin and blood off the wall. I had multiple, to be truthful, I got diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and paranoia, and it got bad. I truthfully tried to off myself once, and my mom walked in the middle of it. Which the way I was going to do it in my head made sense at the time, but looking back, it would have been very messy and very painful. Now, I remember talking to my guidance counselor, and I was admitted to a hospital, St. Vincent's, actually. I did outpatient for 6 days because they didn't think I needed inpatient. So it was a thing of just they did the best they could. My parents did as best they could too, though having your kid go through that is obviously wasn't easy for them either. got put on meds that I've been taking since, and the second med that they gave me worked, and had the same therapist ever since, and it actually is all working out.
Mm,
That's
a good
good.
therapist can do wonders.
Yeah, funny enough, I'm seeing her tomorrow. So
Yeah, and I'm very glad that you did have people there for you. Like that's it can be a very hard thing to go through, especially when a hospital like that doesn't really see it as a problem.
well, they saw it as a problem, obviously, but like you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. So I'd love to get on a little bit of a lighter note here at the end of that.
Fair
You
enough.
mentioned that you had a girlfriend. I want to know a little bit more. So we've talked before about like the concept of a man having to push a relationship forward, which is a concept that people have expressed some dismay over in the past. Is that something that you see too, like that you as the man in a relationship have to be the forward mover?
So
Or is that
no,
something you've not
actually.
seen?
So funny enough, while I did make the first move,
Mhm.
I guess you could say, quote unquote, she's been very, very much about. Sorry, I'm still sick. She's been very, very open about doing new things and going through stuff. Like she honestly is doing very well, and like that was a weird way to say it, but she she definitely pushes things forward too. It's not just a me thing. Luckily, most of my relationships has been like that, but not this one.
That's something you have experienced before, though, right? Is that something that you enjoy doing, or is that something that you're, you know, find yourself being forced into the role of?
I'm fine doing it. Like if that's how it was, I wouldn't be upset by it. But it's a nice change of pace, I'll tell you that.
I imagine it's a lot nicer when like both people are kind of collaborating and like thinking about things to do together.
That kind of a relationship being a group effort is a really valuable moving force.
Where did you get that from? Was it from your parents or like teacher or somebody important? How did you learn to push a relationship forward? Yeah.
So honestly, if you knew me in high school, which I'm not saying this is a brag, by the way. I'm not saying I'm proud of this. I'm just saying this is how I was. In high school, a lot of people that knew me could attest I had a new girlfriend every week.
Mm.
Me making a move and pushing the relationship forward was just how I did things. And that's just, it wasn't something I learned. I think it was just something that I did. And yeah, like, that's just kind of how, I guess, if you see Rick and Morty, and that's the way the news goes. Like, it's just how I always was.
So that feels more of like an ingrained personality being that you've always been the forward mover rather than
Yeah.
something that you've been taught or learned.
Now, to give you an idea, my father is far from a misogynist,
Mhm.
but he also had some traditional views that he gave me. Keep in mind, my father's in his 60s. So, like, the dude is always the one that pays, hold the door open, the sidewalk rule, etc.
Mhm.
Sidewalk rule.
The
What's
sidewalk rule. So, if you have your girlfriend and you're walking on the sidewalk, you're supposed to be the one closer to the road.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. And you learned that mostly from your parents? Or mostly from your dad?
Mostly from my father. My mom also agreed with my dad on most of those points. So, but it's just how that kind of went. Like, I, again, not bragging, I am the type to pay, hold door open, etc. Also, like my father, and unlike my mother, I am also very much a romantic.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. And as long as you're okay with it and the people who you're being with are okay with it, like it's a very can be very healthy relationship one way or another.
I'm actually our healthiest relationship.
Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to. You mentioned that your dad was very, I presume, maybe this is an incorrect presumption, was very close to you and impart that wisdom to you.
Okay, so sad story again.
Oh, all right.
Slap another trigger warning on this episode. I'm sorry.
All good.
Me and my father didn't get close until I was like 22. Or not 22, 21. 21. Hold on. Doing that. 21. I'm not going to sit here, right, at all and say that my father was abusive. I refuse adamantly to say that. But I'm also going to say he didn't treat me the best when I was a kid. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of narcissism and passive aggression, etc. Straight up aggressiveness. He used the fact that I was scared of him for a while against me. And he was so upset when I wasn't scared of him anymore. I still remember that conversation. But it legitimately wasn't until he almost died was when he actually turned around, because my mother slapped separation papers in front of him right after he got back from the hospital and said, "You need to change, or once you recover, you're gone."
That's a good way to kick change into gear, but it's a little harsh. That can
It
be.
was. But the thing she told him was, start with a relationship with your kids. Because my brother barely talks to him, my sister doesn't like him. And I still live at home, so I've kind of seen my dad change into an actual, like, decent person. But again, I've only seen that decent person for 3 years now. Not the other 21 that was in my life.
Is it important to you to have a relationship with your father?
Now it is. If you asked me that question 3 years ago, the answer would have been absolutely not.
That's an impressive turnaround that he made to be able to, get his life into gear and at very least get good with one of his kids.
Yeah, he had a wake-up call when he almost died. Because he was going into renal failure at the hospital. By the time the ambulance got him there, the doctor legitimately said to him, "If I can't turn this around, you have about an hour." Makes you think.
Yeah, it really does.
So, he's a good person now, like, legitimately. Like, I still remember when I was, I think I was 19 when we almost came to blows in the kitchen. Like, that was time.
Well,
sorry, my life is really dark. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We're just wanting to, like, let you talk and just so we can understand it a little bit more.
Yeah. That's the idea, even if it's dark and a little bit tough. Like, we want to hear what you want to say, no matter what it is. And if that's Star Wars trivia, so be it. And if that's personal stories, happy with that too.
My whole thing was just like, I'm also not trying to make it sound like, oh, woe was me in my life. Like, there were definitely people that had it harder than me. Like, my father never hit me, ever. And I know people have it way worse. So, like, I am not trying to have a sob story here. And if you hear me blowing my nose again, it's because I'm sick. I'm not crying.
Well, I do want to ask you then about your father. How, obviously you didn't have a good relationship to him if you came to blows, but...
We almost did. We didn't, luckily.
Almost came to blows. Yes, I'm sorry. Was there, like, always a familial relationship there? Did that still feel like family in the way that maybe it does today, or maybe your relationship with your brother or sister better does?
So, I'm going to be honest, me and my brother weren't really close. Both my brother and sister are both half brother and sister.
Okay.
My sister's on my mom's side, my brother's on my dad's side. My brother lived in Maine, and I'm born and raised in New York. So, I grew up with my sister. Me and her are really close. Like, whenever she comes down to visit, we go to bars together and things like that. Like, I'm very much into the bar scene. But, So me and my sister are really close. Me and my brother, like, we get along. Like, we have nothing bad to say about each other. We just were never that close. My brother was actually closer to my mom than to me.
So I mean, obviously, then for a familial relationship, the blood maybe isn't the most important. Is there other people that you see as family, if that's the correct term to describe it, that you have such a close relationship with, who maybe you feel are even closer than your brother or father used to be?
Oof. So what I would say as far as that is, like, there's a lot of terms that aren't familial that I feel
Uh-huh.
like describe how close someone is. Like, a really good friend of mine I've had since high school, Nick. Like, I view him like a brother.
Hmm.
And also, like, the term uncle or aunt doesn't need to be familial. Hell, I have a person at work who's a fair bit older than me who I affectionately call my work dad. Like, it's just like those people are all family to me, even though I have no blood relation to any of them. You pick your family, truthfully. As like I'm one of those people, you can tell I'm not from the South. You can pick your family. Um, like I recently chose to do that with my father. Well, 3 years ago. Always thought that way about my mom, my sister, and my brother. Like even though me and my brother aren't close, I defend him to the end. Honestly, uh, I have a racist uncle that I just distance myself from because obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like family to me isn't blood.
That's the people you surround yourself with. You choose to be considered family.
Bingo.
Bingo, bango.
Ha ta ta.
I do want to ask a little bit more about yours and your dad's relationship.
Sure.
Besides him being very close to death, how did you desire that relationship with your father?
I didn't. I didn't for like truthfully, even after he said he was going to change, I still didn't. Like I was waiting to see if it was just all like a temporary thing. Like I was like, I'm gonna give this time before I really let my guard down around him. Like I truthfully, my idea was once I moved out, I was just gonna probably do what my brother did, and which was just only talk to him when I come by, or call him and let him know I'm coming by. Like that was gonna be about it. Uh, but then after he changed, I'm like, oh my god, I don't feel like I have to rush to move out now. So I never desired that relationship with him because of the amount of resentment I had towards him.
Hmm.
So I didn't really desire it until I was 22, a year after he said he was going to change and did. After a year, I was like, okay, I don't think this is just a 2-week thing anymore.
What did that change look like for him? Assuming that it's not too personal, like.
No, the narcissism part was gone.
Mm,
uh,
that's
the angry and hating the world thing was gone. The inconsiderateness was also gone. Like, he actually helped me change my girlfriend's headlights in her car and her wiper blades.
mm,
Back then, he wouldn't have. He is active now in wanting to help me get my license. Like, I think that's the last, like, I guess, adolescent thing I have that he could do with me.
uh-huh.
Because I started drinking without him. He didn't buy me my first drink when I was 21. So he didn't get that. He didn't get the learner's permit when I got that. He didn't get me hang out, like me doing much in terms of my adolescence. He didn't get any of that. So that's like the last thing that he can do with me. As far as like stuff like I would have done when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's a lot of like fixing behaviors and trying to do some of those things that he's missed out on.
Yeah, and actually like trying to take part in it. Like he taught me how to fight with knives. He taught me how to fight with my swords and my axe.
Damn.
If it's not a gun, I can work with it. Give me a blade, I got you. But that's all stuff he wouldn't have done back then. And truthfully, I didn't think he'd make that change, or if he did, I didn't think it would last. But he's actually a good person. I think he feels better too, because he's not like brooding all the time or anything like that.
That positive change has ended up being positive for everyone.
Yeah, like even my sister, who like I said, didn't like him. She still has her guard up around him because she hasn't lived with him and hasn't seen it happen. But like she's seen the aftermath, and she's like, "Oh my god, it's like a different person."
That's really nice to hear. That concept that people can change, like even the idea that somebody who is bucked and unkind can become better is sometimes hard for me, because I see it as like you still have some of that same person in there, but like it feels to me like people like your father prove that that is nothing. Prove that you truly can become better.
Yeah, he did. Like his biggest advice was drinking. He wouldn't get like super belligerent, but you could tell after he's had a few. I could count on one hand the amount of times I've seen him drink in the past 3 years.
Wow,
That's a really big step for somebody.
And he used to be a 6-pack a day guy.
Yeah.
Right. Come home from work, grab a beer from the fridge, grab 5 more.
Yeah, actually, he got it on the nose for that one. He also drank light beer, which is disgusting.
Yeah. So thank God that's changed.
Yeah, thank God I don't have liquid piss in the house. I say liquid piss, I meant spiked piss.
Oh.
I mean, it is liquid. You're right about that.
Yeah.
It's liquid either way.
Since we're going with this theme of a little bit of family and like how we learn to be better, what do you think is more important, nature or nurture?
So that's tough. So, and the reason I say that's a tough question is because when I was at that really low and really dark point in high school, some of that was nature because depression runs in my mom's family. My sister had it. So that I always like say was nature. I think the anxiety, some of it was nature, not to the extent that I did have it, but part of it was, I definitely think. I think the paranoia and part of the anxiety was nature because of my father, because he would get loud, he would yell, he would yell, throw things, never throw anything at me. I want to make that like clear, but he would yell, throw things, etc. And I always felt like I had to look over my shoulder with him. So I think at least a part of the anxiety and the paranoia was nurture. I think the depression and some of the anxiety was nature. So for me to say one's more important than the other, I can't. But I can definitely see the merits to both.
What are those merits?
People, what people say, how they see it, how they treat you, especially if it's repetitive and a day in, day out thing, that will affect you in the long run. Like, it took 14 years for me to reach that point, but it will affect you. As far as nature is concerned, that's also very important, because nature, I'm defining as like genetics, things like that.
Right. How you naturally are.
Right. That's also going to play a part, because how you naturally are is how you're going to react to everything else, including the nurture.
So it's almost like there's this yin-yang push and pull thing about nature and nurture, yeah?
I would definitely describe it as a yin-yang. Because if you don't have one, you're kind of fucked. Like,
I'm pretty sure this is the first time I've ever heard that opinion on all these episodes. Usually most people fall under nurture or nature, but to look at both and like respect both. I really like that.
Hmm. I do too. I like that. I often look at it as like nature is innately inferior to nurture, but no, you're absolutely right. Like they are not separable.
Right. And how I got to some of these ideas, my father actually did martial arts way back in like the 80s. And his Sifu was very, I guess the term would be philosophical, spiritual, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm like Socrates here, but I definitely have thought about stuff.
Yeah, I really like that take that those are just to even, and maybe this is exaggerating your words a little bit, but it's the way I'm thinking about it. To even separate them is kind of absurd because one simply cannot exist without the other, and viewing one in isolation is short-sighted.
Yeah, like they're two sides of the same coin would be how I'd word it.
Uh-huh.
Right. Now, using this idea of yin and yang, it seems more spiritual. Are you religious anyway in any way, or do you believe in like karma or anything specific?
So, this is actually something my college professor asked me.
Huh?
We had to write a paper about mixed relationships, whether it was religious, racial, or anything else.
Mm.
My parents are mixed religion, right? My mother is Christian or Catholic. She's some denomination there.
Yes, one of them.
I can tell you which one she's not. I couldn't tell you which one she is. My father's a Buddhist.
Oh,
My sister is a Druid.
hell yeah.
I'm an atheist. My college professor looked at me when I said that and said, "Well, I guess that didn't turn out well, did it?" Been exposed to three wildly different ideas.
Yeah.
Chose to believe none of them.
I mean, that's a understanding that I have of like, okay, a lot of people believe a lot of different things. It's just all bullshit. I don't care.
Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I don't find the idea of religion interesting, but that doesn't mean I believe in it. Like, my girlfriend's very much into the whole crystals thing and astrology.
Yeah.
Which, again, I find very interesting as a topic, but I don't believe in it. Like, she actually left a bag of crystals in my room before she left today. And I understand the thought behind it, and I understand the significance of giving people crystals, so, like, obviously I treat them well, but, and I do what you're supposed to do, I guess, would be the term to use, but I'm not going to sit here and say I believe in it. I respect it, and I will show respect to it, but I'm not like one of those keyboard warrior online atheists that, or borderline anti-theists. Like, no.
Do you? Oh, I just had it. Damn it.
Did it have to do with the term anti-theist, keyboard warrior, atheist?
No,
anything?
no. Okay, I'm back.
Gotcha.
Do you have to have a reason like behind things though? As in, like, do you try and look at the science of crystals and maybe why like people believe in it, or does something have to make sense in your brain for like certain way people do things via religion? Like, I know my buddy Adam, he was on here a couple episodes ago. He kind of believes the sciencey way of Christianity. He likes to have a reason behind certain things that involve Christianity. Would you consider yourself like the same situation where you need to have a reason behind something?
So I need something to be I guess the term would be grounded in, not grounded in reality, because that sounds demeaning, but
no, that makes sense. Grounded is the right word. That's the word I was missing.
Right, yeah. I was saying grounded in reality isn't like a good way to frame it, but I need something to actually have, like, I guess the term would be scientific facts behind it. That's I guess the nicest way I could put that sentence. Like, do I think that there's science behind? I'm going to use the only crystal that I know of off the top of my head is white quartz, because my girlfriend left me some of that, and also has a 25-pound brick of clear quartz in her car. That crystal is supposed to promote healing, or that's the main thing it's supposed to do. Not like I don't think like physical healing, but I think it's like a mental healing. And you're supposed to cleanse crystals of like all the negative energy you're putting into it, etc. And you're supposed to do that with light, preferably sunlight. Now, I don't think there's a science behind any of it, if I'm going to be honest. Do I find that whole concept and idea really intriguing and interesting? Yes, absolutely, and I like learning about it. But that doesn't mean that I think that there's an actual like scientific fact behind it.
But you respect it.
Exactly. Like, I think to like wrap back to a previous topic, not that I'm trying to go back to one, it's just in general, I think equating my interest in that would be like, and I've done this before, me explaining how the intricacy of how a blaster from Star Wars works to a gun nut. Like, people that are really into guns would probably be very interested to hear about how the thought process was and how blasters work. But that doesn't mean that they obviously think that, I guess not real because they're not, but think that like, do you get what I'm getting at?
I get what you're saying though. Like it's in your brain, these ideas behind the crystals are made up almost as much as a blaster is, but it's fun to listen to the intricacies about what people believe in them.
Yeah, and how much thought actually went into it.
Right.
Because like in that bag, like there's so many in here, and I don't even know what they do or what they're for. But I love the idea of it.
And there's not only significance to you, but it's mostly the significance that your girlfriend had given them to you.
Yeah, and I know that like in the whole, I guess, world of crystals and spirituality, it's a big thing to give somebody crystals. At least I think it is. So obviously, I'm going to show respect to that.
So whatever the crystals do, it doesn't really matter because it was given to you by somebody you care about.
Right, and I know what that means in that belief. So
I will say I have high respect for your take on religion, and it's you look at it, you know it's there, and you respect it, and that's it. You respect the people who believe in it, including your parents. I just appreciate that, and I wanted to say that.
Thank you. When you grow up around three wildly different religions, and they all, like, despite obvious things with my father, like, everybody got along as far as religion was concerned. No one cared that my sister was a Druid. No one cared that my dad was a Buddhist. No one cared that my mom was Catholic, Christian, whatever. And yeah, like, and I just thought that having legitimately until I was like a teenager in high school, I'm going to be honest here, I thought people having radically different religions in their family was just normal. No one ever told me different, and no one ever like displayed different, so I just thought that that's how it was. And then when I learned that most families only have one religion, I'm like, wait, what? I had 3 in my house.
Did you ever practice any of the religions?
I can't say I practice them. I've been to religious areas. I've been through religious things. Like, I've been to bat mitzvahs. I've been to a bat mitzvah, not a bar mitzvah. In case anybody was going to question me on it there. I know the difference. But yeah, I was at a bat mitzvah before. I was at religious weddings before. Religious funerals I've been to. Like, I've always like been around like religious stuff. It's just, and once again, I respect it. Now, I kind of made a fool of myself when my great grandmother, who was very Catholic, died, and we had to do the cross with our hand on like your forehead, shoulders, and stuff. I had no clue what order of operations was supposed to be done.
That's totally fair. There was a lot of things that I grew up with the church and the Christian church, and there were so many things that I didn't exactly understand. And it's not a whole lot of intricacies, but I get where you're coming from in that.
Yeah, I also learned that my mom had not a hot take, I guess, but a unique take on Christianity also, which was interesting. Like, she's not a Bible thumper, thank God. But she also reads the Bible a lot, like certain verses she'll read. She also is very much like, we celebrate Easter and Christmas and all that. But she doesn't like the church, which I thought was a really interesting thing, because she finds them too money grubby.
So how does she do those kind of? I mean, does she go to church for Christmas anyway, or do you do like a little service at home?
We don't. Period. We've never did the whole pray over the meal thing. We never did services at home or any of that. She was never really a church person. We've never been to church or anything like that.
She's a believer. She reads her Bible and believes it. That's where it ends.
Right. Like, she didn't like the church because, she thought they got too money grubby. She liked what they stood for, didn't like that they didn't execute on it.
That feels very familiar. I'm in the same take as your mom, as I'm not a big fan of church going.
Well, I also told my mom that it's people like her is the reason why the English church split off. I was just like, people like you that caused that.
I got one last question for you, Austin.
Shoot.
I want to know about, I mean, I know that you like playing games, tabletops, and video games. I want to know what's your favorite of either of those. Favorite system, favorite campaign that you've played in, favorite story even?
Okay, so favorite video game is hard. I have 3 that are rolling around in my head right now.
Tell us all of them.
So, Stellaris, for one.
That's a good one.
Loving the new DLC, by the way.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to have to try it.
Oh, so much fun. Stellaris, for one. Star Wars Empire at War is another one. I actually played that game competitively for a little bit. That was one of the best Star Wars RTSs that ever came out. And then, not the new one, but the 2008 Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Ah, yeah!
That was a good game.
That was another one I played competitively.
Oh, really?
Yes, way back when. Played that competitively when I was like 17.
Yeah. And how good you get?
Oh, I did pretty well. I'm not going to tell you that I won every tournament I was in, but I had a very unique style of playing the sniper class. What I would do is, instead of hanging back, camping and sniping and moving around in the back, I would be on the front line with the sniper rifle, and I would sprint. And what happens is, when you sprint, if you take a shot, you slow down, but then you just double tap again and start sprinting again. So I would just run up to people, barrel stuff them with the sniper, and keep going.
Why would you need to aim down scopes?
Why do I need to aim down scopes if my rifle's already inside them?
I pointed at their head, and I left click, and then I go to somebody else.
Yeah. And that's how you get in the triple digits of kills.
Oh my gosh.
Those tournaments, though, were wild, because in those tournaments, in the old school Battlefront 2, you could do 64 on 64.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It was 32 players and 32 AI on each team.
Oh my god. That sounds truly so fun, but so chaotic.
Oh, it was. Like, and we would always take votes on what era we wanted to play, because the different eras had different classes and mechanics, like the Imperial officer from the Galactic Civil War. He was nice. Like, he wasn't the best class, in my opinion, but his damage buff that he could give all his allies is fun. I usually opted for Clone Wars. I
Oh yeah.
very much love the Clone Wars.
I think
some
the
of
Clone Wars was one of the best.
Some of the modded tournaments were goddamn crazy because one of the mods gave the droids a lore accurate sniper rifle, and the battle droid sniper rifle in lore was fully automatic.
Oh god.
Oh my gosh.
So you just have a fully automatic sniper rifle that you could just pump fire down range.
And when there's 64 people you could be aiming at, is hard to miss.
Right. So it was during those where I could hang out in the back line because I would just spray. It was so fun.
I want to ask, so I mean, obviously you're a Star Wars man, right? Does that
Yes.
apply to, it obviously also applies to Stellaris, does that apply to other sci-fi stuff? Did you ever, like, get into Star Trek, or...
Battlestar
anything
Galactica.
I loved Galactica. Galactica is my
Yeah.
second favorite in sci-fi series of all time. Like specifically the reimagined one, but everybody sleeps on the prequel that they came out for that, Caprica. Caprica showed you the creation of the Cylons and like what happened that made them go rogue for the first Cylon War. And the second, like the reimagined Battlestar Galactica, I thought was really good. It got a little preachy in the end, in my opinion, but other than that, I loved it. Like there's no other courtroom scene that you can give me in fictional media that tops the trial of Gaius Baltar by the War Tribunal, essentially, because of what happened on New Caprica. And Lee Adama's performance, especially having the lawyer actor that they did. Oh, who played that lawyer? Mark Shepard. He did fantastic.
I don't think I've seen enough of Battlestar Galactica to know whatever you just talked about, and I'm sorry. Maybe the listeners know.
Have you seen the reimagined BSG?
No. I barely watched the original.
The original was good. Like, they actually reference the original many times in the new one. Because the new one takes place after the first Cylon War.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good stuff about Battlestar Galactica. That's one that I've meant to watch before, but I've never really been a big sci-fi guy. I'm much more of a fantasy lover.
That explains
D&D.
you liking Star Wars, because that's essentially science fantasy.
Yeah. Because it's all bullshit, but the guns make pew-pew noises.
Yes, and when you know why they make the pew-pew, it's like, oh.
Oh.
Like how they make, like, what goes into it.
Well, now you gotta tell. Why do they make the pew-pew noises?
Okay, so blasters were constructed with the idea of using blaster gas charged up by an energy pack. So you have two different things that you have to swap out of your blaster. Like, imagine a gun that needs two types of ammo to work. So you have your energy pack and the gas. The gas is going to cost you money, and the gas, depending on the gas, also depends on the color of the blaster bolt.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does.
Green gas is the most expensive, but also is the most deadly. Under that, you have yellow and purple, which are on like the same level of lethality. Under that, you have red, which is standard. And then under that, you have turquoise and orange, which are non-lethal shots. Now, when the blaster, when you pull the trigger on a blaster, the gas cartridge emits some of the gas into the barrel, or into the actuator, which gets heated up by the energy pack to the point where it becomes hot to the point where it's plasma, because plasma is just superheated gas, and that builds up a lot of pressure. The only way for the pressure to go is out the barrel, so it pushes the blaster bolt out, and now you hit someone.
And then what, the heating is the pew, or the like release of the
release of the
barrel
pressure is the pew.
It kind of makes sense with how they did the cinematography for it.
Well, yeah, 'cause
I
it's
could
not
hear the
lasers.
noise. Right.
Because
Go ahead.
because that's why the shots don't go at the speed of light. They're not lasers.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're plasma.
Yeah, superheated gas particles that just go new.
They actually
And-
have to travel through space.
Right. So that's why shots aren't going at the speed of light, and that's why Jedi are able to block them, because a little bit of precognition and something that's not going the speed of light.
What about a lightsaber then? Is that actually light, or is that a similar plasma?
Yes and no. So it's a lot of emitters and focusing lenses for it to come through the crystal, and the crystal is, as the Jedi said when we see Barasofi constructing her first lightsaber under Luminar Unduli in the 2003 Tartakovsky Clone Wars. I believe it was the blade is the heart of the Jedi, the crystal is the heart of the blade. Or no, the blade is the heart of the Jedi, the crystal is the heart of the blade, and the blade is the heart of the crystal is the heart of the blade. I'm looking up this quote now, I'm sorry. The crystal is the heart of the blade. The heart is the crystal of the Jedi. The Jedi is the crystal of the Force. The Force is the blade of the heart. All are intertwined. The crystal, the blade, the Jedi, you are one.
I think that's a perfect spot to wrap up with our fellow walking, talking Star Wars Encyclopedia.
Yes, it was very good to hear all the Star Wars trivia and some personal stuff too.
Yes, all over the place tonight.
Yeah,
It was good, whatever it was.
No big deal. We started with Star Wars and ended with Star Wars.
Brought it all back around.
It all
Brought it all
comes back around.
Quick housekeeping. Of course, like always, thank you to Nadia Diaz for the podcast cover art. Her Instagram is at Arthead Creations. That'll be in the description. And of course, thank you to Jensen Kral, who made our intro and outro for this podcast. I don't know if he's still working on it, but he does have a demo that is released called Knocking on Doors for the musical Tea Time. And that is on Spotify, iTunes, all the fun music places. And it's also going to be linked in the description. But anyways, thank you so much, Austin, for coming and hanging out with us for a little bit.
No worries. Don't be afraid to hit that like button, ring the bell, subscribe.
This is not on YouTube, but
it is on
too bad
YouTube
anyway.
But not a lot of people listen to it onto YouTube. But that's okay. Do what he said anyways. Follow the podcast. Exactly.
Find the bell and hit it.
All right. We will talk to you guys later. Next episode, it'll just be Malcolm and I. So stay tuned.
Yeah, see you there.
Bye.
Bye.